In the middle of the 19th century, Egypt, then under Ottoman rule, moved to tighten its grip on Sudan, a territory of considerable strategic and economic value owing to its location along the Nile River. Egyptian efforts to modernize and govern the region were met with fierce pushback from local tribes and religious leaders, laying the groundwork for a drawn-out struggle over who would ultimately control the land. In 1881, Muhammad Ahmad, a Sudanese religious figure who declared himself the Mahdi, meaning the Guided One, rose to prominence as a compelling and galvanizing force against Egyptian and British influence. His blend of spiritual authority and political resistance struck a deep chord with many Sudanese people, igniting a broad uprising against outside rule. The Mahdist movement spread with remarkable speed, seizing towns and territories throughout Sudan and posing a serious threat to the interests of both Egypt and Britain in the region. The eruption of the Mahdist rebellion placed the British Empire in a difficult position. Britain had significant strategic stakes in the area, particularly in preserving its hold over Egypt and ensuring uninterrupted access to the Suez Canal. Alarmed by the growing reach of Mahdist power and the vulnerability of British nationals living in Sudan, the British government stepped into the conflict, sending military expeditions to bolster Egyptian forces and defend its imperial position. One of the most recognizable figures to emerge from this conflict was General Charles Gordon, a British Army officer assigned to oversee the withdrawal of Egyptian military garrisons from Sudan and to help maintain stability amid the spreading Mahdist insurgency. Rather than follow through with the evacuation, Gordon chose to entrench himself in the city of Khartoum and defy his orders, a decision that dramatically escalated tensions and set in motion a lengthy siege. In response to the British being surrounded at Khartoum, a relief force under the command of General Garnet Wolseley was sent into Sudan. This expedition comprised roughly 1,400 men, drawn primarily from British Army infantry units, including detachments from the Royal Engineers and Royal Artillery. These soldiers carried rifles, bayonets, and artillery pieces into the field. Alongside the regular infantry, the British deployed a camel corps, a specialized unit of soldiers mounted on camels designed for rapid movement across the punishing desert terrain of Sudan. The Egyptian troops fighting alongside the British were part of the Khedive Egyptian Army, nominally under Ottoman authority but operating largely under the direction of British advisors and officers. The Desert Column reached a position overlooking Abu Klea in the evening. The commanding officer Stewart opted against launching an attack that night. The British quickly threw together a defensive perimeter, but they were harassed throughout the night by Mahdist rifle units firing down from the surrounding high ground, inflicting a steady stream of casualties before dawn. At first light, Stewart ordered his men to break camp and form a square, a formation they executed with disciplined precision. The camels were packed into the center, the artillery pieces were positioned along the front face, and the Gardner gun, crewed by a Royal Navy team under Captain Lord Beresford, was placed at the rear of the square, ready to be rushed to wherever the fighting became most intense. It was at this moment that a massive Mahdist force, which had been concealed nearby, suddenly revealed itself. Numbering somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 warriors, the force was armed primarily with spears and swords, though a portion of the fighters carried single-shot firearms. As the Mahdist ranks came within range, the British artillery opened up. Captain Lord Beresford swung the Gardner gun from its position at the rear and brought it to bear on the advancing fighters. After firing approximately 70 rounds, however, the gun jammed a mechanical failure at the worst possible moment. Despite the setback, the British held their square and fought off the assault. The engagement was brief, lasting barely 15 minutes from opening shots to conclusion. British losses amounted to 9 officers and 65 other ranks killed, with more than 100 additional men wounded. The Mahdists are estimated to have suffered around 1,500 casualties. Even the wounded among the Mahdist fighters refused to yield. The battle also claimed the lives of several key Mahdist commanders. The following day, the Desert Column departed Abu Klea in the late afternoon and pushed through the night toward Metema. After engaging the Mahdists in yet another battle, the British established a new camp. That night, they were once again targeted by Mahdist snipers, and during the harassment, Major General Herbert Stewart was struck by a bullet and wounded, a blow that would have lasting consequences for the campaign. Command of the Desert Column passed to Brigadier General Charles Wilson, who served as the force's intelligence officer and had little experience leading troops in the field. Wilson was slow to organize his men and repeatedly delayed the push to relieve Khartoum. On the 20th of January, additional Sudanese and Egyptian reinforcements arrived to strengthen the British position. After spending time conducting reconnaissance along the river, Wilson finally departed for Khartoum on the 24th of January, bringing a modest contingent of British troops and some of the newly arrived reinforcements. They reached Khartoum after 11 o'clock, but by then it was already too late. The city had fallen to the Mahdists 2 days before their arrival, and General Gordon had been killed. With no city left to relieve and no further objective to pursue, the British withdrew from Sudan entirely, leaving the Mahdists to govern the territory for the next 13 years.